We are live. Yay! Okay, Mr. Brenner, I have a few questions for you. Hoping you'll give me some answers.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. You're running for Missouri State Senate, correct?
The U.S. Senate for the seat of Missouri.
Yeah. This is the federal level.
Correct.
And that means you represent the entire state.
Correct.
I haven't noticed any Black Lives Matters comments on your Facebook or anything like that.
You haven't gone back far enough, probably.
Well, as far as I went back as far as I could, and I didn't see any.
Oh, you can probably find that I donated $50 to BLM at the beginning of last year.
Okay. How about support for LGBTQIA individuals?
Yeah, actually, so 2 or 3 years ago, I began writing a book about love is love and lesbians stranded on a deserted island as like a fiction sort of thing.
Okay.
Most of my friends are most of the friends that I hung out with at the time were lesbian, and we went to a bar called Attitudes, where there was
Okay.
shows and that kind of stuff. It was fun.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And
Long
my
day.
job, yeah, my job about 2 or 3 years ago, I used to work at this place called Gramophone. It was very liberal, and it was inside of the LGBTQ community in St. Louis at a place called the Grove. It's a pretty popular place.
How would you say you would stand on an issue like Medicare for all, where it would be cheaper, it costs less than what we pay for Medicare now, and you could get everything covered?
I'd say I'd have to completely see the full plan of it, and then I'd vote on it based off of like whether or not I believe it's effective in its current form. That the way it's proposed, I don't believe that that's the effective method of proposing such a situation. I think I'd probably be able to figure out a better plan. I don't believe in mandatory taxation. I believe in voluntary taxation, and I believe that if we have a voluntary taxation system with a more informed public, that we'd have a much more effective system.
So you're depending on people, and in some cases, billionaires who won't pay taxes now, and you think they're going to suddenly pay.
I believe that like the general public has more of an impact on the taxation system, which is why they increase taxation on the working and lower classes in most instances, and it's harder for them to end up taxing the rich bracket because there is greater income and slowly increasing taxes on the middle class. And I don't believe that we should be doing that as like a coercion sort of thing. I believe that if we inform the public on how their taxes are impacted on the system, that the richer people would be more willing to oblige in that type of a system, because then it would be transparent and people could see that they're not paying at least like a percentage of what the public ends up paying on average. And then that would be bad, because then they'd say, oh well, Amazon doesn't pay their taxes, so suppose we shouldn't spend our money there because then we know it won't go back into the system. Does that make sense?
No, because if you properly taxed Elon Musk, that money would go towards things like say broadband for rural communities, or roads, which, by the way, these companies do use either directly or indirectly.
Again, Elon himself even proposed if you give him a viable enough solution for where his money can be best located and how it would be used, and make that transparent, he'd be more than willing to fund it. He's even said that publicly, and he has not actually received a proper plan other than, hey, I'll come and pitch it to you myself, and like that's great. But I mean, if you make that publicly transparent, then maybe the public can also review it too, and then say, hey, maybe Elon's not the best judge of character in these terms, and maybe we can all figure it out better with like an actual economist, because I think that Elon's more of like an engineer.
He's actually not.
Okay.
But so what you're saying is you want to avoid exploitation of people, right? That people should willingly enter into these things without any coercion.
If that's their prerogative, yes.
So what you're saying is the worker should seize the means of production.
Uh, if that's what that means, I don't believe that that's what that means.
What do you mean you don't believe what that's what do you think it
I
means?
believe that the people should seize the means of their government. I believe that the people should be fully inactive and not inactive, but fully directly active in how their taxes are applied and what their tax money is used for. Because I think that that's actual representation, like taxation without representation, is criminal. It's theft.
Okay, no, I'm not talking about representation. I'm talking about the fact that you said people should not be exploited, right?
Right. I
So they
also
shouldn't be
believe that
taken advantage of. Yes.
in the sense that if you spend your money towards taxes in good faith with your government, you should know exactly how that money is spent and where it goes.
I'm not talking about taxes.
Okay.
I'm talking about you don't feel people should be exploited, period.
Period.
That's not right. Okay. Okay. So that means if I'm working at a company and I generate surplus labor value, meaning I say I generate $110 an hour for what I do. They pay me $10 an hour. They keep $100 an hour. And this assumes after all expenses, they get $100
Okay.
an hour off of me. That's exploitation. I should take that back.
So I believe that's determined in your work contract, right? So if you believe that the amount of money that you're being paid is exploitive in a sense that you're generating more value than your job's worth, in a lot of senses, in most cases, when you're in a fair work environment with the proper management and that sort of thing, you can sue in a sense, like with them, formally, in order to receive a higher wage because you can argue that, right? Like in an instance where my friend Khan, this is a real example. I guess I don't want to name drop people, so I won't tell you exactly like who he
I
is,
don't know
but
who that is, so if that's
right.
fine.
Yeah, he's an arbitrary person that I know who's wealthy, right? But he worked at a
Okay.
casino. He worked at a casino to like raise marketing and that sort of thing, and he did so good at his job that he got like a raise based off of the percentage at which he generated in excess. Because he was able to sue with this company because he said, "Look, I'm bringing in a great amount of wealth based off of what you're paying me, and that I'm worth more." And he was able to do that, and I think that you are able to do that in a lot of cases where you do that. But in some cases, a lot of people have like a Dunning-Kruger effect in a lot of sense where they see a lot of money coming in a sense, but like the money that's sent that way towards the brand is the responsibility of something as simple as like Starbucks, for example, who's generated their brand in a worldwide renown that claims that in their work contract with you, and that's why people get paid a reduced hourly wage and are exploited in the way that you're speaking is because they sign up for it, which is the travesty that is really happening is that the system sets up this opportunity for people to be exploited.
Yes, but I'm talking about them taking back that. I'm
I
talking about getting rid of CEOs. I'm
so
talking about getting rid of.
but what you're suggesting, right? Taking it
Yeah.
back is exploitation.
No, it's not.
It's taking. It's literally
Oh, but
taking.
it's okay for. So what you're saying is Elon Musk can pay somebody a slave wage, rip these people off, and fly to the moon if he
No,
wants. That's fine.
I'm saying
He doesn't
I'm
have to
saying
get
anybody
taxed.
I'm saying anybody can step up and become the next Elon Musk if they
No,
do so.
no, that's a
In
lie.
the sense that like Elon wasn't just like, well, I mean, yeah, Elon is Elon, right? But there are other people that can succeed in a large way, and it doesn't have to be as big as Elon. You can be the next whatever amount of success that you would need to be more
That's a
than
lie.
stable. I
No,
mean,
because these
I
people
wouldn't like to
got.
think that that's a lie because I mean that's what I'm trying to
No,
do
it
with my
is.
board game design and books and that sort of thing. You know, I'm like trying to create my own job through artistic means, if that makes
And
sense.
there's nothing wrong with that. But
Yeah.
the problem is, though, is the people who are billionaires, 44% of them are people who inherited it
Oh yeah.
or they started off. So what you're saying is these people who already have a leg up on everybody else don't have to pay taxes, don't have to pay people a living wage, but they can benefit off of somebody. No, that's exploitation.
I'm
If
saying
I
that
generate
I'm saying
labor
that
for
they
you,
wouldn't benefit off of people. Like I said, is that it's about raising public awareness of people not paying their taxes, which is what does damage to the system, right? So you wouldn't spend your money at Walmart if you knew that it wasn't going back into the taxation system. That money just goes straight into someone else's pocket. Nobody would really do that if they care about the society. In
Well,
the
there's
sense
people
that
who don't.
you wouldn't feed a crackhead if you knew that it wasn't going to like you wouldn't feed him crack, right? If you knew that it wasn't going to like, you know, help him somehow. You wouldn't keep enabling people, is what I mean. So like
But I would
when you
make
see,
sure he has. But I
go
would
ahead.
make sure he has a place to stay, medication, and food to eat.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like one of my best friends, Sean, is a recovering addict and that sort of thing. So I mean, like
Yeah,
there's a certain give and take process where it becomes harmful to the person providing as well, if that makes sense. Like there's a certain amount of generosity that is self-destructive, right?
so
Uh, so you have to reach that point in society and be able to realize that as well. So something like the Medicare for all proposed system, right? We don't know if that's actually going to create a system that's going to be beneficial and effective because in a lot
yeah,
of
we do.
instances where you but in a lot of instances where you do have publicly provided systems, like especially in the education system, it's much lower quality. And it's also
Not
proven
true.
in it's proven in other countries where people opt into more private systems, like in Scotland, for example, where people prefer to have private health insurance over the government stuff.
No, they don't.
Some do. Some that I talk
No,
to
they
do.
don't. There are people who do, but they have money and they think they're better than other people.
I don't think
That's the
they
problem.
think they're better than other. I think they think they're getting better service through that system. That's why they do it.
Like people, yeah, that's garbage. That's I could go to most European countries and I could go to Canada and probably get better health care than I could here
I mean,
because
yeah,
we have a for-profit health system that does not care about the actual individual.
yeah. It depends on where you go and what kind of people are working there, what kind of system they're running, how long it's been working well, whether or not it's been sustained and regulated, and that's not always uniform.
Okay. But going back to the original thing I was asking you about is what I'm saying is this is I don't believe that if I generate wealth for somebody else at a job, they're entitled to all of everything else other than what they pay me. That's exploitation there. Take it. I have generated this wealth. They're taking it from me. I don't need them. Workers don't need Elon Musk. People can things can happen
I
without
think that
money.
Apple has worked really well so far and been able to hold together without Steve Jobs. So like the person running the whole head of the corporation isn't necessarily itself the corporation's success, because like when a higher management in that sort of position comes out and he likes to congratulate everybody on all of their success, sometimes it is sincere because it's like you realize like when you become this successful that you wouldn't be there without the people driving it. You wouldn't be there without the workers, right? That's why we believe that the workers should be entitled to it, is because they do set up and maintain and come to work every day, you know?
But they're not. I mean, people at McDonald's aren't getting paid a living wage. They work during the day,
So,
they work a full-time job, but they
some
aren't getting
McDonald's
paid a
have
living wage.
some McDonald's have opted to raise their wages to $20 to $25 in some areas now. It's
Yeah,
pretty high.
they
It's
should.
still, and I mean that's a living wage on average.
Actually it's more like 25, but it's closer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean 25 is like the max they're paying in some areas because I think that's like what the people are agreeing on now based off of inflation, and it's getting
Yeah.
pretty high. So,
I don't see anything wrong with it.
I,
If you're working
I
for a company, you're dedicating 40 hours a week, why should you not get paid enough to live on a comfortable life? I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to hustle quite a bit more on DoorDash to make ends meet, but I end up doing it. So
Yeah. But see, again, what I'm saying is, I don't think, see, I'm not talking about a particular celebrity. When I said Elon Musk, okay, I'm going to clarify it. We do not need CEOs. We do not need major leaders in companies. The people
okay,
who produce, yeah,
so quick thought though, right? Like I'm developing a board game. We'll use that as an example, right?
okay,
If I wanted to create my own game company, I would be the primary designer of that company, and that's kind of the job that I would want on it. And I would want to hire
okay.
somebody else to be higher up in that company than me. Like I would want to opt to hire a CEO to run the company because then they would be able to bring it to success. And that's based off of their ideas of how that game should be marketable, and they'll make decisions based off of hiring experts and analyzing data and performing statistics to generate a better product. And I think that that's the job of the CEO and the role, and we don't really recognize a lot of that as like actual work, but it can be
No, not really.
stressful, man. It can be stressful, I'm sure. That's the job I wouldn't want to do. Ugh.
That's again, we don't need CEOs. We really don't need them.
I mean,
I know, I because you
it's an
love
ugly job. Like
capitalism. Yeah.
it's oh no, I mean, I don't love capitalism. I don't love socialism or communism or anything like that. It's all materialistic in purpose in general. But I think that it's a representation of greed. Like we should be thinking about things in more terms of like whether or not we're sharing, whether or not we're making sure that other people are making ends meet. But I don't think that that should be a monetary policy, or like I don't think that we should set these types of restrictions on how we believe that property should be managed and handled. And I think that some companies could be socialist in the sense to where all the workers produce that, but I don't think that should be uniform across the whole nation or in any
I
state.
do.
I mean, but that in itself, right? That's more coercion. That's forcing other people into these structures, and that's creating a different society and a different box for people to fit into. And not a lot of
How
people
are
are
you
comfortable with making
forcing
these
anyone to
huge.
do anything? If all the
You'd
workers
say
agree,
that they'd have to all agree, right?
yeah,
I don't think that they would all agree in a lot of cases.
why not?
They would have to come to a unanimous decision, and in the United States, that seems to be impossible today.
Okay, what you're saying is that people would not. Let's just say Acme Incorporated here has
Okay.
100 employees. Okay. These are all workers, not counting all the other people, like all the higher ups, just 100 workers. And these 100 workers vote that they don't want to have a CEO. They don't have any of that stuff. They
Okay.
seize the means of production. Each one of them gets 100th of that company. So essentially, they're all collectively business owners of that company. Why would
Okay.
somebody not want to do that?
I say that they should try it if they all agree on that, but I don't believe that the entire country should try that all at the same time. I think that if you believe that you should perform an experiment, it should be in control groups, that it should be studied and analyzed, and if it's found to be a success, then it can be integrated in other areas.
Madagon, Mondragon in Spain is a cooperative like that, and it works perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, I think there was the '08 recession. They did quite well. I mean, they didn't let anybody go, but they did have to cut down how much people got paid. And people
Hmm.
lost some hours, but they were able to retain most of the people, and they were able to rehire the ones back that they could keep. I mean, that they couldn't keep during the '08
Recession. Yeah.
crash. And it's actually known that a cooperative is actually a more stable because you don't have a CEO at the top constantly trying to scarf as much money from the company as possible.
Are there other cooperatives that have been shown to be a success in that way, like Tencent or something like that, like a larger company?
I'm not sure. There are ones in the U.S. I mean, I know there's a cooperative in San Francisco that it's a bakery. That's the word I was trying to say.
Okay.
It's a bakery, and they all collectively own it. They all vote on, um, hiring people, firing people, making decisions on how much they spend on things and all that stuff.
Yeah, so my family owns like several properties and that kind of stuff, but like on my mom's side, her husband has like a quarter of a corn farm and it's like a collective cooperative, like that kind of thing. So I mean, I don't
Yeah.
believe that these types of policies and these types of systems are forbidden to be used in the United States. So I believe that arguing for them in uniform across the nation would just have to be a matter of actual like proven debate, right? Like you'd have to debate it really good and then convince other people that that's the way to go if that's the proper, like a better system. But they're going to counter it because they have other evidence, like, oh, my business is already successful, so we're doing okay. And then it's like, well, maybe that'll phase out as people decide, I don't want to participate in those types of systems and I don't want to contribute to that type of corporation.
You're making absolutely no sense. It's like you're scared that people are going to do this. That's what you sound like. You're terrified that
Oh no,
people are
I
going
mean,
to do this.
like I said, my family owns like a quarter of a farm that already does that. And I think
I
that
know.
there are a lot of democratic socialists out there in like the farming area too. Like, because I mean, I toured the country and I ran into a lot of random people, right? But I don't think that it's bad unless it's actually exploiting other systems, and
How is
Whenever
it?
I didn't say that it was. I did have to say that there'd have to be
Well,
something that shows that it does. And then,
yeah.
there are companies that you say that are capitalistic, but I say that are corporatistic in a sense that do exploit people on a national level, like McDonald's, who I haven't purchased anything from happily since I was 8. So I just realized that it was bad for me, and then I realized that I didn't want to, participate in that system, and then I
Yeah.
protested at a couple of them. And I've been doing that for Walmart and other companies as well. And then while I was working at Target, I barely purchased anything. In fact, I was mostly working there so that way I could take money from them because it was kind of like a protest in that way.
Okay. But I mean, I just think it should be easier for people to seize the means of production. I think if there was a federal law that was put out there that a bunch of people who wanted to say a bunch of workers, and like I said, at Acme Incorporated, the hundred workers, if they had it could, if they could vote out the CEO and everything else like that, I think they should be allowed to do it.
I think that that could also happen with the shareholders and all of that sort of thing as well too. So there's already systems in place that do that.
That no, 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 no. I'm
Uh,
talking
no,
about I'm talking about the workers just going, eh, no CEO, no this, no that. I don't care about the shareholders. They make
that
money off the company.
would mean that the workers would take over the whole company, right?
Yeah, that's the
Like
point.
they would overthrow, right? That
Yeah, that's the
that
point.
to me sounds a lot like stealing, right?
That's not stealing.
It's taking.
No, it's not. They
How?
produce the wealth. They don't
Yeah,
need the CEO to produce the wealth. They produce the wealth. If they're
yeah.
producing it, they should benefit from that. They don't. They
But
benefit only
this,
the amount.
but the leadership isn't producing it by
No,
like managing it and making
no.
sure that it's marketable and running advertisement campaigns and knowing who to hire and fire and like what who would lead it? Could just
We
anybody
don't need.
come and be a worker and if they're
Yeah,
working bad, would they just like opt to fire by like voting on it? Like wouldn't
yeah.
that be like a okay? So that that seems like a waste of time and company
Why?
resources, though, doesn't it? I mean,
Why?
that's it's more time spent deciding who's working with you and who isn't. The reason why you delegate work, right, is to make things more functional in the sense to where it can run seamlessly.
I'm not saying there wouldn't be people like, say, having supervisors in a sense overseeing things and stuff like that. They just wouldn't have power over people.
I mean, they don't. I mean, I've worked at other places where I've had supervisors above me that haven't really had any power over me.
So I just don't understand what's wrong with that. If I work at a company and I'm the reason why they're making money, why should I give away my labor for pennies on the dollar to the CEO and everybody else of the company? I
But
should get all of it.
like I said, I think that they're being overpaid for what they're worth, right? That's probably very arguable, right? You're getting underpaid and they're getting overpaid, sure, but I don't think that they should just not exist because of that. There's other companies or the
I do.
CEOs being paid as much as the lowest paid worker in the entire system, and there's other companies or the CEOs being paid an average. They've opted to do this themselves because they believe that politically, and I agree with them. It's cool. Yeah. Like if I were to create a company like my board game company, for example, I wouldn't pay myself very much. I wouldn't need. I would want all of that money to be held within the company's capital to grow itself.
And that's great. But not every CEO and wealthy person feels the same way you do. That's the
Right.
problem.
But
And that's
again,
why, yeah,
taking money from someone is taking money from someone, which is stealing from them if they don't want to give it to you. I think that you can rationally
I'm
convince
generating the
people.
wealth. They're taking it from me.
They've already done this,
They,
yes, and you can. Okay, so here's a really cool thing about America, right? You
yeah,
can sue somebody for $20. Do you believe
okay.
that a company has exploited you, right? That you have generated more worth and they refuse to at least provide you with an agreeable percentage of that? And if if you're arguing 100% of that seems irrational, but
No.
you could take that to court, and the court could agree with you in America. That's totally possible, especially
Why
with
should I
however
let
many.
them have all the power?
But I believe that there's enough people out there that are politically minded enough to be on a jury or a judge or whoever makes this type of decision in order to agree with you for that lawsuit, in order for that to pass. So I don't think
So,
that's far fetched.
Why
Yeah, so
why should I let someone have power over me?
I don't believe that
You don't
anybody should
want
have
it,
power over another person.
but in this instance, you're saying that because they have money, they should have power over me, and they should exploit me. They should do whatever they want to me, and I
No,
should
like I
just
said,
go by
you
the
should.
rules.
I said you should opt to sue. You have that ability.
Why not just take it? I'm
That
generating it.
that's
Why should
what the
I?
law. That's what the lawsuit is. How else do you propose to take it other than by force?
Well, they're forcing me to give it to them. So what's the
They
difference?
haven't forced you. You agreed to
Yes,
it
they
by
have.
taking the job.
And how
Yeah,
much
it's by
power in?
contractual agreement that they have duped you.
And who
That's
has
why you
power
sue.
in that contract? I don't.
Yeah, right. Right, because you've signed it
And
away
you're
in that
smiling
contract.
because you think it's okay these guys have power.
No,
But
I'm
yet you
smiling
don't.
because of how it comes to the conclusion, like how you draw this conclusion, right? Should help enlighten you into this process to realize that this system was put into place to enable all of your ideologies that you believe should be right and that do exist inside of the world, and that they can be enabled and they can be enacted in the current standing system, but no
No,
one
they
really
can't.
opts to do it. They can, yeah.
No.
It's totally possible for
I
you
just don't
to.
think they I don't think somebody who's born into wealth, who has probably never worked a day in his life, has the right to take my labor value and tell me to go stuff it. And in some cases, like Jeff Bezos, make people literally defecate and urinate in bags and things so they don't take a break, so they keep their freaking job.
Yeah, my wife used to work at Amazon, actually, fun fact. So it's pretty bad there. She didn't like it. She had to work there during the holiday season. It was the warehouse, so it's not. I mean, it's probably not as bad as San Francisco in the streets, but it's pretty bad. So, and like what you're saying, exploitation and all of that stuff. Like I said, that's all. Whoever signs into that has complied with it. You have to read the terms of your contractual agreement.
Yes,
Anytime
but
you go
who
into a
has the
job.
power in that contract? Who has the
Yeah.
power? It's not me, it's them.
So, so then,
Really?
well, like I was saying, an informed public would not willingly sign into a contract that stripped away their power in that sort of an arrangement, and they would argue or opt to sue at any point that they feel that they've been exploited because they have that education to be able to know that they
And
are
how
able
much
to
money
sue.
does that cost?
You could do it yourself for free.
No, you can't. You have to get lawyers, and that costs money,
You'd,
and you know
you'd have
that.
to you'd have to pay court costs, but like I said, an informed public, you wouldn't need a lawyer. You could defend yourself, or you could propose your own argument, and you can opt to sue by yourself.
Again, that takes money. Most people don't have that.
Okay, so an informed public, right? Like I would argue
You keep
for
on saying
would
this
have.
informed. Just because you are
Yeah,
informed doesn't mean you
this
have
is
the money to
actually
do it.
this is a part of my campaign is an informed public, meaning that education should be free in a lot of senses to where you should have access to this information. The Freedom of Information Act helped us gain access to confidential information, but I believe that there should be another information act that allows the public access to college education at the click of a mouse. We have that power. We just are hiding it behind a paywall. And I believe that that's the true exploitation is that we're overcharging for college education, which means that we need to overpay for medicine because the doctors have to pay their student loans. If you want to try
No,
to get a
that's not why.
degree in any, well, I mean,
That's because
it's also because
Mark.
the things are way overcharged. Like insulin, for example, was overpriced.
Yeah, it's called profit.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, and this
That's
is
the
all
problem.
trying to get people out of debt that go into ridiculous amounts of debt in order to get these
It has nothing
positions
to
because
do with
that's
that.
what's required currently. I mean,
Nothing to do with
that's
that. It's companies being greedy. So you don't think that
that's
happens.
true.
You live in
No,
the Care
that's
Bear
true.
world where let me finish speaking. You live in the
Yeah.
Care Bear world that for some reason these corporations are so nice and we just don't understand and we should not tax them and not inconvenience them. And when they pay somebody $10 an hour, oh, well, that's that person's problem because they should take personal responsibility, not inconvenience me by say, oh, I don't know, expected to get paid a living wage and may possibly inconvenience me when I buy stuff from that company.
Yeah, you should be responsible for all of your actions in society, whether that's taking a
No,
job or buying a
say
product.
don't inconvenience me. When you say be personally responsible, say don't inconvenience me because that's what you're really saying. Because you
No,
don't want, you don't,
I believe that
if it,
every person's actions are their own actions to take, right? If you
but
make
you
a
don't live in a
decision, you've
bubble.
made that decision.
You don't live in a bubble. And that's what you think happens.
What does that mean?
That if I do actions, it doesn't affect anywhere else around me.
No, that's not at all in anywhere in my writing
Really?
either. Like all of my fiction is basically like what happens in one part of the world affects the other part of the world.
Okay.
That's like
Then
some
what's
of my
wrong?
favorite literature.
Then what's wrong with having free college all the way up to a PhD? Um,
That's what I
Medicare for
argue for.
all.
Uh, I
Really?
argue for free education for everybody. Like I just said, at the click of a mouse, you should be able to access a college level education because we have the ability to just post all of this information for free, and anybody should be able to educate themselves.
No, no,
That
no.
should
I'm talking
also
about actually have access to teachers. I'm not just talking about go there on your own garbage.
okay.
I'm talking go to a college.
So let's say, for example, you're a teacher who you have to
Yeah,
spend a lot of time all day
yeah,
teaching people. How do you
yeah.
get paid? Who
By the
pays you?
institution that you work for.
So the institution, how do they get paid? By the
Uh,
government through
it
taxes?
would be probably by the government in this case. Yes.
Yeah. So my system proposes that whoever wants to pay into it can, right? Whoever doesn't think that they should want to fund public education shouldn't have to put money into that system. Same way that if they don't want to fund war,
Okay, then
they
I
shouldn't
want you
have
to
to.
set up your company and not require anyone to pay for your products, but say you could take whatever you want, but you don't have to pay for it if you don't want to. How long would you stay in business?
You wouldn't.
That's the point.
So
If
so
people have
then
an
you
option of
you
not
mean that you
paying,
should pay for education?
no, what
So
I'm saying is we should
you
tax
should
the
pay for,
wealthiest who exploit who exploit people, have them pay
but
for it because they benefit. Please let
wouldn't
me
you tip?
finish.
Sorry. Yeah.
When they have no problems with benefiting from public education, no problems with benefiting from roads, no problems with benefiting from things, but yet they pay nothing in taxes and have paid nothing in taxes for decades, but yet they get to benefit. That's stealing. According to you, that's stealing. But it's okay for them to do it, but I can't get paid a living wage. I can't seize the means of production because I'm stealing, because I'm inconveniencing them for some holy reason that I don't get.
Yeah, that sounds like a really bad contract to me.
Why?
Well, I mean, going into a contract where you're fully exploited by that type of a system, like working at Amazon or working at Walmart, for example,
Well,
where
that
they
happens
overwork
every
you and don't
day.
even pay you for overtime. Yeah, I know. That's why I don't shop at Walmart.
Okay, that doesn't change the fact these things happen. You
Yeah,
know that,
but
right?
there's nothing I can do about it other than to run for Senate and then to oppose Walmart's the policies that support Walmart and then the bailouts that support these corporations that shouldn't
Yeah.
exist because they're funded by the government. Then if your business fails, I'm sorry, but it's going to fail. And there's nothing that the taxpayer should be doing about it unless they want to opt in to save your business, in which case they can do that on the stock market. That's what publicly traded companies do.
But you can also do things like vote for a, say, $25 minimum wage.
Yeah, and you could pass that too, and then and make it to where no business would be able to succeed unless they could pay all of their workers $25 an hour. In which case,
Total
that
garbage.
businesses would. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be able to pay all of my employees $25 an hour unless I made enough money to be able to pay all of my employees $25 an hour,
Gee, it's like
right?
somehow you'd have to have money beforehand, like, say, from a family or maybe be born into money to start a business like that. Gee,
Yeah,
funny how that
or
works, right?
go to a bank and propose your idea to the banker, and then have them be cool enough to be able to say, hey, you know what, we might be able to make a profit off of that idea, and then they'd be willing to loan you that money, which they magically print out of thin air, mind you. They loan the same dollars out 7, 8 times before it actually bounces back. Which is the trouble with the current monetary system, is
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's a fiat currency, which means that you could just print more of it constantly, creating never-ending inflation and staggering amounts, and it's based off of nothing. It's completely speculatory. It's a piece of paper that has less value than the actual paper it's printed on, sadly. And the flip of a switch, they could just say times 10 and watch the money supply flow. Because if you look at the M1 money supply charts, I don't know if you wanted to like pull that up or anything like that for the purpose of the
Yeah.
stream later or edit that in, but if you just look at the monetary charts for the M1 money supply over the last year, it's quite the increase. It's just a straight up line, and I wish my stock portfolio looked like that sometimes. Like it, it's mooned, which
Which
is
is what? Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's bad news because the banks are running out of liquidation and all of these other problems that are just cascading on each other. So the problem is that interest rates are low. Everybody's borrowing. I got lots of collateral, they got lots of liquidity, and it's just the whole market is flowing right now, and it's actually a bad thing in a lot of ways, and it's an illusion of success, which is going to drive a lot of bubble burst in the next couple months, or maybe a year. It looks like, because the stocks are absurd right now. Crypto's out of hand, and I think the dollar might collapse because of all this stuff.
I don't know about that. All I know is we're in late stage capitalism, and we need something better. And capitalism is not working.
Yeah,
I mean, all they're doing is
I'm not a financial advisor. Just for a disclaimer, I'm not I'm not an economist or a financial advisor. Just I play stocks on the market and crypto and that kind of stuff, and it looks pretty tulipy right now. It's kind of scary for the whole dollar.
Okay, yeah, but the thing is, though, is like in Wisconsin, they're literally allowing fast food companies to use 14-year-olds up to 11 o'clock at night to make sure they don't have to pay a living wage. That's garbage. That's why capitalism does not work. It's based on greed and exploitation, period.
I mean, again, with the isms part of it, I don't think that's the actual problem of it. Capitalism's
stop saying with the isms. Okay, you're using that as an excuse to dodge a question.
Well, no, I just don't like isms in general.
A money-based system that has greed. Since you want me to, I can play the game too. See,
socialism has had greed before. Communism's had greed before. Greed is not intrinsic to just capitalism alone, and I don't believe that greed and capitalism are mutually exclusive concepts, nor is collectivism and autonomy. It's not. I don't think that's mutually exclusive either. In sense to where you can have.
What do you mean collectivism and autonomy are mutually exclusive?
The collectivism and autonomy are not mutually exclusive. Now, this is kind of an essay talking point in the sense to where it's going to take a while to explain, I guess. But you can have collectivism in a certain area functioning properly, with autonomy functioning correctly and properly in another area, and that you don't have to exclusively have just collectivism throughout the whole nation or throughout the whole state. You can have a small town that's a collectivist autonomy. We do have that. We do have autonomous zones too. Like we have Chaz running right now, an autonomous zone.
What?
Not me. Have you ever heard of Chaz? CHAZ, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone inside of Portland, Oregon. That's an autonomous zone inside the United States.
I think that used to exist. I think it.
Did they disperse it already?
I know something about it. I have friends involved in it, but I don't. Offhand, I really don't know that much about it, to be truthfully honest.
I met someone that spent some time in Chaz interviewing lots of people there and kind of getting a perspective of what was going on. He had a lot of interesting things to say, and I think that there's going to be a couple more of those popping up here and there. Maybe even. I don't want to speculate. That seems weird, but
I mean,
it doesn't seem like it's going to be like a one-time thing.
Yeah. See, the thing is, though, is the reason why I'm going to use the word cat. I understand you don't like me using the isms, but it's convenient and it's easy, and that's what I'm going to use. The United States invaded Vietnam because they didn't like what kind of government they had, and that government was going to be a collective type government, which they claim, quote, this stuff doesn't work. Which is funny because it's still around and it's still working, and it's actually doing pretty darn good with its economy. Matter of fact, I think it's one of the few growing economies in Asia and maybe even the world. I'm not exactly sure about that. But,
yeah, I believe that I watched an interview where someone attested cultural Marxism being the savior of collectivist Vietnam. So I'm not sure how true or correct that statement is per se, because I haven't really looked at the data myself, but that was her claim. So
no, it really has helped them out a lot. During the pandemic, the government put down a lockdown, and they made sure people got food. Nobody went without anything. They had the police and the like the equivalent, like the Boy Scouts, I think. Something like that, some like youth organization handing out food to people, making sure people got what they needed, got their medical supplies or whatever if they needed those. And it went and it went great. And they've, despite the fact that they haven't been getting vaccines, they've managed to tamp down on the pandemic. There's still been quite a few deaths there, but not as many as in the U.S. There could have been less in the U.S., but we had a president that didn't care, so we have more dead people.
Okay. I'm actually running on low battery here, so if you wanted to go ahead and we can do wrap ups if you wanted.
Oh, sure, not a problem. I get the whole low battery thing.
Yeah,
sure.
I just can't do this inside.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. Well, any other things you want to say?
Oh, yeah, I guess I'd be honored to sit in the chair that Roy Blunt held for so long. I mean, I'm not necessarily like agreeing or disagreeing with his politics or his stances or anything like that, but I just grew up for so long seeing those Roy Blunt signs everywhere all the time, and he was successful and there, and it was a big name and it's a big chair. Josh Hawley's on the other side of it, and I think that we do need some kind of a dichotomy. I'm not necessarily opposed to him. But I'm also not necessarily agreeing with conservative standpoints, which is why I'm running as an independent. And I believe that it's important for independents to run, no matter whether they believe that they can win or not. Because if you feel like you're not being represented by your government correctly, that you should step forward in places of power that there is a vacuum where you can use that power wisely and effectively to help and contribute to your society, because they rely on you to do that. And if you can't do that effectively, then you'll be replaced by somebody who should take those reins where they haven't been held right for that long.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go because I don't want your battery dying. I don't want your wife yelling at you either. So, have a nice day.
Yeah, man. Great talking to you.
Yep. Bye.